Welcome in to the latest episode of the Betting the Pitch presents the Formula One episode. We're not dead. I know the haters were out there thinking that this was done and we were going ready into football season, but we're back. We have Roscoe Poop Scoop and, of course, myself at the real underscore G Warner. We were talking F1, specifically the race in Hungaria or in Hungary, the Hungarian GP. It's been a little while since we've been on here. Angel is back with us, and we're going to start with a recap of what we've missed ever since I believe Canada was the last time we actually broadcasted. So we've got Austria, British GP, Belgian GP, all that have unfortunately been difficult for our schedules. Angel, how are you doing on this beautiful Saturday, August 2nd?
I'm doing well. I'm glad we're back on talking about F1 on the podcast again.
Me too.
Um,
Me too.
yeah.
So tell me, how is your fantasy F1 season going? Are you still crushing everyone in your work league?
I'm still leading. So that's a good sign. And I think yeah, I think in a couple of few weeks actually been treating me pretty well on the fantasy front.
Well,
I've been
well,
calling,
we're gonna
yeah.
capitalize on that on today's episode, and it might be a little bit brief because we're gonna have to recap what's happened. So, unfortunately, this podcast had turned into and I hate to say it in this way, an Isaac Hadjar fan club, and then unfortunately, he's kind of fallen off since. It's pretty sad. I was looking at his to win the Hungarian GP numbers, and they've changed drastically from when we were back recording. I don't think it's something that I will ever get over, but Isaac Hadjar was so good to the podcast as literally a top 10 play every week. And we might go back there today. We're not sure. But tell me a little bit more besides Isaac Hadjar, what we've seen in the last few races.
Well, I feel like nowadays we can't really start talking about F1 without talking about McLaren, right? Lando and Piastri, and think it's been a pretty interesting fight between these two for the past few races, coming from Canadian race. I know that was our where we left since the last episode, right?
Yep.
But it was an interesting crash between the two drivers as coming out of the Canadian Grand Prix, and Lando made a mistake and fall off sort of the championship. But then quickly enough, Austria and his home race at Silverstone, he actually won both races. Quite a strong kind of comeback
Hmm.
from a Canadian mistake, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
And then Spa, obviously, Piastri dominated Spa, and so this we're kind of like looking at between these two because they are leading the championship, and at this point, I think as of last race, Max Verstappen is actually mathematically out of the championship front. So
Sad,
we're
sad,
all
sad
based on
story.
no,
Sad,
yeah.
sad stories. Sorry for Max. Maybe if he had the best car in the field, which you've been saying this whole time has been the
Yeah.
McLaren design. Okay, so as you said, Lando Norris won in Austria and in his home race in the British Grand Prix. Then Oscar Piastri ripped back the lead and won in Belgium at Spa, as you said. As to no surprise for anyone in this podcast has been listening this whole season, even with a little bit of an interlude between the last broadcast and this one, it's probably to no surprise Lando Norris is favored in this race. Oscar Piastri a close second, most likely to win, but we'll get into that a little bit more. So one of the themes I think we've had throughout, you are wearing your Ferrari kit, if I see that correctly today. What I think one thing we debated because there was no debate in your mind that McLaren had the best car forever and ever and ever, but that there was going to be some priority questions on whether they would prioritize a driver. You seem to always say that they wouldn't, and that they were two drivers operating under the same, I guess, team umbrella, but both would be going to win. Has that changed at all to you?
No, I mean, I think Zach Brown and Andrea, Lando and Oscar fight out at Montreal GP. That was an example. They're not gonna get into the two drivers, and even that means one of the driver actually, crash. So I think that doesn't change for McLaren. Yeah. I
Okay.
think
And
that's
so
going to be the theme. But especially now, there's truly no competition between the two drivers for the championship. Yeah, no reason for them to favor one over another.
when you say no competition, I assume you're talking about from other teams because it's basically a
Yeah.
two-man show here with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Piastri currently on 266 points, Lando Norris on 250, so 16 points behind. You mentioned Verstappen at 185. He's well behind, 81 points back. 11 podiums for both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Okay, so we're pretty much saying that there's no real favoritism in the team. That's been the same. How big of a lead is 16 points for Oscar Piastri over Lando Norris right now?
Well, it is a bigger than when we saw it, I guess, like after his Austria and Silverstone, right? I think last week he actually Lando got the pole at Spa, but then just lost around the first corner over Piastri. So I think it's just very tight between these two, and we do still have a few races to go after the summer break, and just so everybody else listening to this podcast knows this is actually the last race before the summer break, and then we're gonna get into sort of a few weeks break here. So I think 16 points doesn't seem much, but then it's really hard to chase because you almost have to win like at least five races over Oscar Piastri to catch up on this, right?
Yeah, so at Spa in the Belgian GP, Oscar Piastri's win earned him 25 points. Lando Norris's runner-up for 18. So it seems like there's going
Yeah.
to have to be a lot of wins and second places or worse for
Yeah.
Piastri for Lando to jump him. But there are 10 races left, it looks like, after the Hungarian GP. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. So we're not just a top-heavy show, Angel.
No.
What are you seeing from, I guess, the rest of the following pack? So Verstappen unlikely to have any sort of chance at winning, and finished in fourth in Belgium at Spa. Charles Leclerc finished third. George Russell, who's definitely been your favorite, I think you picked him to finish top three in our last episode, and he won the whole thing, which is awesome. Any other news from the rest of the drivers before we get specifically focused on Hungaria?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting like Mercedes kind of fall off on the constructorship points, right? They fall behind the Ferrari and Ferrari has been consistent. We haven't really been impressed about their performance in terms of the podium finish or just they're just kind of unimpressive across the board. I feel like in the first half of the season. Although Leclerc did finish podium last race and he got pole actually for Hungarian GP this morning. But I think a Ferrari just as a constructor is stronger than Mercedes both in car and both in driver, right? And I think Mercedes they definitely dominated in Canada and which like I guess good for me calling those him finish Russell finished top three and both driver finished top six, but Kimi actually got his podium at Canada. So I think that's really prove a point for the Ferrari for the Mercedes car is actually they perform very well in the cool condition, right? And that's really not really a great thing for them because I mean, Hungarian GP in Budapest this weekend is pretty warm and they miss Spain and Monaco, all that. So it's just very sensitive and but granted, second half of the season we have Brazil potentially to be cool, Mexico GP up on the high altitude in the mountains. That's pretty cool. So potentially Mercedes could come back, but Ferrari, I think they brought a couple upgrades over the past few races, so they've been kind of performing well. Unfortunately, Hamilton, which is really heartbroken for me as as the biggest fan of Lewis Hamilton, like he just seems quite struggling in this car at this new team, right? I mean, today Leclerc got the pole and he didn't even make it into Q3. It's just really sad.
Yeah, really sad. Breaking news on the Betting the Pitch Formula One podcast. Lewis Hamilton has actually exited the race for this weekend. Just kidding.
Ah,
Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so to your point about comparing Ferrari and Mercedes, so I grabbed these numbers last night before qualies, which just literally went down, which Angel was watching before we get on here. So I'm actually looking at the constructor side of things, the teams, and McLaren big favorites minus 600 to win the race, but specifically in Hungary or in Hungary, but. Red Bull's second most likely, tied with Ferrari at 6 to 1 odds to win, and then Mercedes all the way down to 20 to 1. So you've kind of mentioned it that Ferrari, I think, has disappointed for a lot of the season. And honestly, I'm surprised to see this such a significant difference between Ferrari and Mercedes, but you just kind of touched on that, and the numbers certainly back that up. So I think I'll do in trying to, I guess, compare what the numbers were last night based on pre-qualification, then post-qualification. We don't have everything up just yet, but some ideas and kind of how things have changed so far. But before we get into that, can you, at Roscoe's Poop Soup, can you give us an idea, Angel, on what or how does Hungary's Grand Prix compare to other, I guess, races we've discussed on this show or other races that have occurred so far this season?
yeah. Think of the racetrack itself is a very technical track, right? It's a very twisted, a lot the low speed corner and a little bit narrow. So many people compare this track with Monaco actually, even though Monaco is definitely a street track, this is not. But I think just from the setup, from the corner, and also how that demands on your car setup is similar to Monaco. So it requires a lot high sort of a downforce setup and meaning potentially gonna be a little bit tire wears throughout the sort of race, especially in this hot temperature at
Excuse me. Just want to make sure you said tire wear, or are we looking for a different word for everyone to take a shot for?
It's morning.
It's
Are you
morning.
ready?
Yeah, not everywhere. You know, we have listeners in Germany, I think. Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, tire
Yeah,
degradation.
there it is. It's been so long.
Someone
I was like, I
taking the
didn't know
shot,
if
right?
the vocab had changed over there. I'm glad it hasn't. And when we look at Monaco, so Charles Leclerc, who did take the pole in qualies this morning, he did finish second in Monaco behind Lando Norris, between Lando and Oscar Piastri. So that's interesting to me, especially based on kind of where things are as of today. So I guess I'll just list the qualification positions for, I guess, the meaningful racers, then we can kind of get back into it. So Charles Leclerc took the pole, Oscar Piastri second, Lando Norris third, George Russell fourth. Mr. Alonso in the Aston Martin took fifth, Stroll took sixth, Bartoletto seventh, who's honestly surprising as he's one of the longest shots to win the whole thing as of last night. That probably changed slightly. Max Verstappen eighth, Liam Lawson ninth, and Isaac Hadjar, here he comes, finishing 10th. That's the last thing I want to touch on before we get into Hungary. What the heck has happened to Isaac Hadjar, Angel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not so much himself, but it's also just how rest of the team catch up. I think over the past few races, I know we talk about the top performers, but Sauber has been so impressively performing like well last few races. Like Hockenberg, I forgot the exact number. He's been racing in F1 for years, and he finally got his first podium at Silverstone. And he's driving Sauber kicks, which is one of the last few, you know. But then at this point, they may not be the last two because they've been just capturing the points over the few races. And I think that really puts Racing Ball as a Harjar, Liam Lawson in Racing Ball cars, give them a little bit tighter competition, right? And you think Williams like was actually the mid pack leader, but then now William is falling behind. So Haas sometimes performing well, sometimes not. So I think it's extremely interesting to just even look at the the mid pack where everything is like shuffling pretty dynamically. And this weekend, you see Alonso and Lance Stroll like in the Aston Martin, even in top six quality, right? So I think it's just how dynamic the mid pack of the constructors are, and that really shifted things up a little bit for Isaac Harja. your
Yeah.
favorite boy.
Yeah, he has been my favorite. I don't know how I feel about him anymore. But for now, I am very curious about Hulkenberg finishing on a podium and then qualifying 19th as of today. So that doesn't look
Yeah.
great for me as him trying to kind of follow that up. But it seemed like maybe that was just a blue moon event. We're not expecting much from Mr. Hulkenberg any further.
Well, I think he truly captured from like Canada, Austria in the beautiful like Austria landscape, right? Like it's truly one of the most beautiful racetrack on the calendar. And then you go to Silverstone, which was raining and raining weekend, and then you got into Spa, one of the raining weekend as well. So I think when it rains, it really equalize a little bit, even among the top driver versus lower tier, right? So Hockenberg really did well in Silverstone because they made a really great team call, strategy calls, pick him first and go on sort of the slick tire sooner than others, and that really offset and kind of over put him to the front. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's I mean there definitely is an element of like how well they've been improving on their car performance, and I think there's also a little bit of the weather and the elements of the team strategy.
When it rains, it pours, as they say, or in Western Europe, it always rains, I guess is how it generally goes. So let's switch to a little bit further east in Europe. So we'll go to this Hungarian GP in the Hungaroring track, and easy for me to pronounce. But so Charles Leclerc taking the first spot, and I guess I can reflect on kind of where numbers have moved. So Lando Norris was a plus 125 most likely to win favorite last night, and that's actually improved a little bit at all lines quoted courtesy of Bet Online. Actually, it's gotten worse. Let me rephrase that. So Lando Norris now 2-1 odds to win the Hungarian GP. Oscar Piastri has moved from plus 140 to even money. So that's a pretty significant change, a lot based on their qualifying positions. Oscar Piastri second, Lando Norris third. In terms of other, I guess, interesting things, Gabriel Bortoleto, he basically has been cut in half because he had such a good qualifications in seventh position. I don't think that Angel is expecting any sort of threat for Gabriel Bortoleto to finish on the podium, but maybe things happen, pigs fly at some point, and maybe the Brazilians just really do well in Hungary or something like that. But I guess Charles Leclerc being the pole, so he's been chopped down from 15-1 odds to plus 375, and clearly has some experience at Monaco, to say the least. How are you feeling about Charles Leclerc in this race?
Yeah, I mean, even before this weekend, I feel like one of the Ferrari gonna be finishing on podium. That was like before knowing all the free practice, and I personally wish that would have been Hamilton, right? But I think Leclerc, in that car is just he's been throughout the free practice and throughout the qualification. Like we saw this morning, is just yeah, he's been like not far behind McLaren, and then like just surprisingly, he actually caught the capitalized on their mistakes and really took the pole this morning.
Yes, he did. And so I keep looking for Lewis Hamilton in the qualification results, and I keep scrolling, and
Oh my gosh, you shut up.
maybe my computer's
This
a little
hurts.
slow. I don't know. Oh, there he is. He's in 12th. Okay. I guess so. Since I know Roscoe Poop Scoop, the Twitter handle that Angel uses, I was gonna tease you by saying hides behind, but that's not correct. You use it. You're out there. Explain to me the fall of Lewis Hamilton. I know switching teams has been challenging, but ultimately, I'm curious what you think is, I guess, his problem right now.
I mean, I think there definitely is a little bit like mental side, right? The confidence level. I mean, I feel like F1, one of the reason I love about F1 is just how it push the excellence and the performance to an extreme level down to like a 1,000th of a second. And then when you get to that precision sort of a timing precision. I think the mental and the confidence and psychological side definitely plays a car, and you can see that from Lando's earlier performance. I guess not earlier, before like around Canada. Things like brewing towards Canada. Um, but all that said, I think, and also like Silverstone, Hamilton's like home race, and he had been that's the only driver that's so successful and so dominated in any of the racetrack had been Hamilton for Silverstone, and he had a 12 years of a streak finishing on podium at Silverstone, and Hockenberg broke that streak like this year, and that sucks, right? He was so close also to kind of get it back in the car and get his first podium in Ferrari this season, and didn't get it. And then Spa is just he didn't really do well in quali, even though he actually stormed from like 19th position to like finish sixth. That was a really good result. Just how much of a gain he's made. But again, I mean, you could argue like he may have been able to finish on the podium if he had quality better. So I think it's just it's very sad. I really hope like throughout the summer break he kind of like recollects himself and come back strong. And I think early on the Ferrari car not suitable, that hurts his confidence as well. But I mean, he's a seven times world championship, and I would argue he's eight, but I'm sure he has gone through so many sort of a difficult mental challenge,
Hmm.
and never gave up. That's
Yeah,
his phrase.
he will not give up. I think we see that. I think to
Yeah,
your point, just unfortunately starting in a lower position has been difficult, and that's going to be the same situation starting 12th in Hungaria for this race this
yeah,
weekend. So, in terms of the numbers that have moved, obviously we start at the top, and that's usually the most interesting I think to talk about is McLaren being out and out favorites to win this race, despite Charles Leclerc having the pole. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you think about this race and what post qualification? Because I don't think we've recorded really with the field in front of us before, so it's a little bit different today.
yeah,
Clearly, Oscar Piastri has leapfrogged Lando Norris to be favorite to win this race based on finishing or qualifying one position ahead of Lando. But Charles Leclerc, from being fourth most likely to win this race at 15 to 1 odds last night, now has the pole and is still not really close to being favored. I mean, almost four times less likely to win the race than Oscar Piastri based on the market. So, can you tell me what you think about a monogasque racer who's used to a monogasque type of surface? And that's what you compared this Hungarian GP most closely to, with also, I must say, rain in the forecast for Sunday, because I guess if it's Europe, it must be rainy.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think between Lando and Oscar, that's an interesting one because I mean like Oscar actually won his maiden race in Hungary last year, right? So I think hopefully that plays his psychological side a little bit favorable. But I guess like even coming out of the quali this morning between Lando and Oscar, it's just a back and forth. It's just I guess Oscar perform a little bit better. And when we talk about this Hungarian racetrack, I do think a quality position is really important, which is why I think the market just move a little bit more for Oscar than Lando after the quality, right? So and even just between these two, I mean if it's any I guess if before it's this were before Spa, I would think Lando could be performing better than Oscar Piastri in the rain, but Spa actually proved like Oscar could deliver even during a harsh weather condition, right? And if we're talking about tomorrow, that could be raining. So I think maybe just Oscar still has the edge over Lando because his track position.
Okay, so he starts higher in on the pole, or I guess in to start to be in the race. Pole is clearly Charles Leclerc. But you're saying heading into Spa, the general consensus was that Lando Norris was a better driver in rainy
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah.
What is one race enough for you to change that opinion, or is that like a streak thing, or maybe riding some momentum? Because to me, it seems like a lot of times, and just maybe this is more of an investment type of strategy, is that a lot of times recency bias is a pretty serious thing. So you see somebody perform in the stock market, on a baseball diamond, wherever it might be, on a racetrack here, that they do a little bit better, and that's what we, as I think humans psychologically, think to the most, is that we just saw it happen, so it's going to repeat itself. Um, is that kind of, do you think there's any sort of room for that type of bias in this type of assessment? Because it seemed like Lando Norris, coming from a very rainy place like Britain, and honestly, Oscar Piastri as an Australian, I'm not as familiar with the weather in Australia, but I can't imagine it rains anywhere near as much as it does in the UK. So is that something that you think that potentially Oscar Piastri either showed that he had a capability no one really expected at Spa, or do you think it was more that there's maybe, I guess, could you kind of explain why all of a sudden people are a lot more comfortable? Maybe not you so necessarily, but why are people more comfortable with Oscar Piastri in the rain than maybe they were just one race ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think the chance for raining for tomorrow versus Spa is actually lower, right?
Mhm.
So that there is a little bit slightly hope like there it wouldn't be rain and the track position actually plays even more favorable than what we had like than the raining race. But
Favorable to Oscar Piastri if it's
yeah,
less rainy, because I do see some rain
yeah,
in the forecast, but it doesn't say 100% by any.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and because like again, he's front row with Charles Leclerc, and he could just pull up and drive off, right? And I think that's kind of and that's what you would hope for. You would have hoped for Lando at Spa, but then I think obviously Spa had a little bit longer runway until your turn one, so it really doesn't really matter as much for your pole versus a second position. And then Oscar truly took advantage of that. And even Spa it's a sprint weekend, so there's a mini race, a sprint race before the Sunday race. And Oscar had a pole, Max was a second, and Max actually overtook Oscar to win the sprint race at Spa as well, right? So I think maybe Spa is a little bit unique, I guess, like in terms of the track runway. Um, so that being said, I do think I understand your points around the recency bias. Maybe Lando is still a better driver in the rain, but I do think for Hungarian GP, the track position is pretty important. And just given the recent performance of Oscar, it's just more calm and more well put together during the challenge moments than Lando, and that's just he has a little bit edge over Lando in that aspect. Um,
Okay, so you said track position is really important. Charles
yeah,
Leclerc, he's on the pole.
yeah, yeah. I know. I'm leaving this. He has a poll, but the market doesn't seem to agree with that, right?
Well, so the market is, I mean, it's chopped the number pretty
Yeah,
significantly from 15 to 1 to plus 375.
yeah,
So that is nothing to really sneeze at, or whatever
yeah,
gesture or response we should have. So that's pretty significant. That's a, let's see, he went from 6.25% chance or implied probability to win the race to about 21. So that's, I mean, it's significantly different. I am
yeah.
curious though. Is it just, as we always come to it on this episode, or on every episode we talk about on the Betting the Pitch Network about Formula One, is that pretty much McLaren is such a much better vehicle than anything else that's out there, that that's the big change? That yes, Charles Leclerc has the ultimate best starting spot, but it's not enough to overcome the differences between the cars.
I think so. I think that's actually where it comes down. Again, given this track is a pretty a technical track, so the car setup is very important. And McLaren just has a better downforce setup and has better tire management setup and just takes does better at the corners. So I think all that said, again, position matters. I'm a little bit shocked that um Charles is still behind both McLaren driver. I would think, given his pole position, the market would actually adjust him as like more of a second, either over Lando, or over Piastri. You know, like so. I think that part is a little bit, I guess, different from how I would interpret the result from the quali. So all that said, I do think Leclerc, is positioned very well to finish top three, and that's in my mind kind of like a pretty easy pick. And then the question is like, can he pick top two and potentially even win the race? You know, yeah,
Okay, so we do have some numbers that have just popped up. Thankfully,
yeah,
we've gotten a little bit further away from the qualies. So, Bet Online is dealing some new numbers. So, the top two finish: Oscar Piastri 1 to 6 odds -600, Lando Norris -400. Charles Leclerc finished top two +125 from the pole position. And if we want to extend down to top three, Lando -800, Oscar Piastri also -800, Charles Leclerc -280. So pretty expensive to get in there.
yeah,
George Russell +125, Fernando Alonso at +350. Those are the fourth and fifth. So it seems like
yeah,
it's following the qualifying positions. Max Verstappen 6 to 1 to finish top three, coming in from the eighth place position. So maybe there's some value there. I always want to check in the top 10 and see where my guy Isaac
yeah.
Hadjar is. He's currently -140 to finish top 10. So it looks like the market is back to believing in Isaac Hadjar. He's pretty much even money or better for what felt like a month of finishing top 10. I want to get to actually our listener comments as well. Just got some in from the friend of the show, Joe Dollar, who I know Roscoe Poop Scoop is often talking to on the Twitter box. But he said, safety car, yes. He also likes Leclerc to finish third. He's done this 3 straight years, so I think you kind of alluded to that a second ago. Classified's under 17 and a half at plus money because Joe always loved to see some retirements. And then last, he likes Oliver Bierman, top 10 at +160. That might have changed a little bit now. It's +175, so a little bit better price for you, Joe. Any responses to any of that from you, Roscoe Poop Scoop?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about Leclerc top three, so I won't dwell on that. But I do think top two for Leclerc +125 is also a really strong position there because again, he has a pole position. If one of the McLaren actually does better to overtake him, he still have a solid chance to keep his like track position, you know. But I think a safety car, it's interesting point. Hungarian GP does kind of given again the technical track, the narrow and twisted corners. So it would introduce, and even in quali you see like people having the track limit deletion over the track limit and got their race pace deleted for Antonelli and for some other race drivers, right? All that said is like it's easily to go over and get into the gravel and the spin off, right? So I can see the safety car coming out for sure. I guess like his point is actually minus 115 for safety car.
Yep, yep. So
Um,
pretty much a toss up either way of
yeah.
yes or no.
So, but I don't know, like, I feel like last week for Spa, one of the most, I mean, the track that you probably expected the most, to be, I guess, did not finish number. But then all the 20 driver actually all finished at Spa last week. So it's a little bit kind of surprising for that. And for Hungarian, I feel like under 17.5 140 is actually a little bit risky in my mind. I'm surprised that it's only 140
Yeah,
there.
well,
So,
we know Joe Dollar, especially after everyone finishes the next week. He's just doubling up and saying, it can't happen twice, back to back to back. So
right.
that's gonna do it for this episode. But you've stuck around this whole time. So let's get some best bet winners. We do have lots of options out here. Top 10 finish, top six finish, top three finish have all been adjusted, top two even after the qualies this morning. Feel free if you'd like me to point to somewhere, if you'd like a number, Angel, but tell me where you'd like to go for your best bet on this Hungarian GP episode of the Betting Pitch Formula One podcast.
Do you have a number for Lando versus Piastri matchup?
Ooh, yes, I do. And Lando versus Piastri right now. Well, excuse me. We have Oscar Piastri plus 100 versus the field minus 130. So clearly he's expected to win this thing. So we maybe just go because I guess winner is a little bit different. So when I said I did have that, let's see if I can actually find it. I don't think I have that. So no, I do not have that. But you could tell
Okay.
me, you could tell me it probably will appear at some point, but that is not
Yeah,
available
yeah.
right now. I bet online.
I mean, I guess even like, but currently, if Lando odds to win is actually lower than Piastri, so
Oh
probably
yes.
it's probably gonna be minus points if like for Piastri to
Correct. Piastri would be the
outperform
favorite to
Lando.
finish
Yeah,
ahead of Lando
yeah.
Norris. So are you
Um,
hinting that you think Lando Norris finishes ahead of Oscar Piastri?
no, I'm actually that's I was hoping the market thinks differently. And
Mm,
okay, I think I'm ready for I do have a couple things in my head. I mean, I can lay out all the three and the way to give my final pick in
go
the
ahead.
end.
Go ahead. Yes, we'll decide. That's what
Well,
happens on the fly. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of gave away one of this already. Like I do think Oscar gonna outperform Lando,
Okay.
given his track position. And the other thing is Alonso. I think Alonso top quality number five is pretty significant for Aston Martin, both driver top six in qualification. I do wonder how well their race pace gonna be for Aston Martin because the way they set up the car probably just benefiting for the one line position.
Mm.
Um, but I will actually go potentially go for Alonso top six as well.
Okay.
Um,
Alonso
and
top six is currently minus 280. So that's pretty expensive based
oh
on
oh wow,
where he
okay,
sits. I mean, so it seems like to me all these top finishes are based on the pricing and what probably is going to need to happen.
gotcha.
Yeah. So if you want to give us, as we're about to be up on time,
Okay,
do you have
yeah,
another interest for you? And we'll figure out how to. I'll send it out on Instagram. I promise to do that for all you listening. Thank you so much for your following
yeah,
so far. Give me one more.
yeah. I think it's Leclerc top two.
Top two, Leclerc plus 125. I like that.
Yeah,
And
X.
stay tuned. This is actually the best thing. It's a tease. Check out Instagram at the real underscore G Warner. I'll put out my pick for this episode along with Angels as well. Make sure you follow Roscoe Poop Soup on Twitter, and then we'll be back in, I guess, for the next race, whenever the heck that comes. Is that not next weekend? You're saying we got a summer break?
No, it's gonna be a couple weeks. We're
Okay.
going to the summer break.
Summer break and in the end of the summer. We'll catch you later. Thank you for listening as always, and we'll talk to you very soon on the Betting the Pitch podcast, specifically covering the Formula One race this weekend.